Hi, hello, it's Amber. Welcome back. Today I thought we'd paint this tropical seascape. So here we go. We're going to tape down all four sides like I always do. Top and bottom first, then side to side. And I thought today our little thing would be to use a brush that maybe helps us loosen up. So for me, today that brush is going to be this liner. You see I also have my calligraphy brush next to me as well as a mop, but I'd like to stick with this very long liner. I love this brush. It's a super cool brush and it forces you to let go because you can't control as well as you typically could. See how it's flopping all around? It feels like it's dancing versus like you're forcing it to do a thing. So I painted horizon. I drew a few mountain ish areas, and now I'm just going in on top of the sky and the mountains to above the mountains. And I'm going to make a horizon. I'm going to add some sunshine, some bright yellow, and some orange, and some coral, and maybe a little bit of red. And I'm just going to play with it. I'm not sticking to a reference per se or trying to do something in particular. I'm just kind of letting things go and see where it takes me and let that brush do its thing and see how loose it forces me to be. Even if I get real close down to the ferrule and hold it there like I would a pencil, I'm still not getting that control that I would with a brush with a less floppier or longer, right, hairs on it. So this, in addition to maybe a dagger, a Chinese calligraphy brush, what else can I think? A script liner maybe. It might be a little thin. I do like this liner in particular because it has more of a belly to it. It's almost like an elongated mop liner, if you will. I'm not really sure if it's considered a liner or a mop, but I'm calling it a mop. I mean, a liner. I refer to it as a liner. I'm going to probably refer to it as elongated liner from now on. I don't know. Anyway, I'll link it in the below for you in the description area. And so I'm just playing and dropping in lemon yellow. I'm dropping in a papaya orange, a coral, I believe that's strawberry, the bit of red I got in there. And I'm just taking all these colors and I don't show me mixing colors like I always say because I don't want you to be tied to the colors I'm using necessarily. But I'm mixing them, I'm using my palette, I'm mixing everything as I go, and sometimes I'm dropping it on the paper and mixing it. You can see me trying to add more reds and corals and oranges and just mixing as I go. And I realize this corner is getting pretty dark. So in a second here, I'm going to lift and I'm going to stick with the same brush I'm using. And that is that same long elongated liner. I'm just going to stick with it as long as I can and see how it helps me loosen up and kind of free myself from trying to control this so much, right? And I did not wet this paper first. So that's why you see me doing a lot of almost like squishing and digging and kind of smearing the paint, if you will, because I didn't pre-wet the paper. And you absolutely could. I didn't want to because I do sometimes like the white spots that are left, and it helps kind of the looseness as well. And so you'll see those bits of white, but I do kind of cover them up mostly in this one. So I guess it really doesn't work as well. There I am lifting finally, and I'm using my brush the same way as I would use any brush to lift. And you can see I'm bending the heck out of those bristles. So the good thing about this brush is that it is an inexpensive brush. I would highly suggest getting two, but I'm a backup kind of girl. And so I do like having two of something that I really truly love. And I do have another one of these. So that being said, I am maybe not as fearful. And I wash and clean this brush every night and I condition it so that I can shape it into the shape that it was when I first got it. So it does go back into its shape every evening, even though it's kind of getting, shoved around and bent a bit in his video here. I'm just going to keep layering those colors until I get kind of a sky that I like with more depth. Right now it doesn't have a lot of depth to it. So, it's really heavy red on that one side, corally red. But I'm just going to, often on these kind of pieces, I'll go back and forth from the sky to the land, to the sky to the land. So if you see me bounce back to the sky, that's why. I sometimes like to wait for it to dry a little bit, then add a little bit more. This is still pretty wet, that sky area. So when I touch this blue background landscape looking thing, it will bleed a bit into the sky, and that's okay with me for these. I'm trying to just be kind of real loose and let things go and just let them kind of merge together. I didn't want a particularly realistic or very detailed precise, I should say precise painting where, this is very much so a far off distant mountain. This is very so a palm tree bush thing. I don't even know if that's a thing. But anyway, I'm just now adding some serpent green from Masha. And I will say, I know I don't say I call it colors, but Masha's greens are amazing. Serpent green, shadow green, dark. Just it looks like there's like 5 greens, but it's really just 2. And they just do magical things. And I think I use a little bit of tree bark down there, or maybe just a more shadow green dark. I love those colors. So if you need some greens, those would be my go-to recommendations on greens, especially if you like something like Daniel Smith's Undersea Green, but you want it in like a handmade paint format. Not that that's a similar color at all. It just does the same kind of magic that that one color does from Daniel Smith. So if you're looking for that in handmade, this is the person that I would absolutely recommend you to. Masha's watercolors. They are amazing and beautiful, and I love every single color I've ever gotten from her. Even colors I'm not necessarily drawn to or don't think I would love, they end up being some of my favorite. So here I am using some granite and some tree bark. I'm using a little bit of, what else did I grab? Goethite. Is that even how I say it? Goethite. And some flame orange. And I'm just using those colors to create this this little slope, this little landmass, island, mountain, hill thing, whatever it ends up being. Now, my picture doesn't make a lot of sense, but it doesn't have to. Okay, this is whatever you want it to be. This is your practice. This is your exploration. This is your invitation to do what you want, to practice the things that you might need to work on. Or if you're not in the mood for that, practice something you're very comfortable with so that maybe it becomes a very therapeutic session for you. Just comfort what you needed, like a warm piece of bread with soup or something, something, whatever it is that you find comfortable and comforting. That can be this for you. And that's kind of what I'm thinking of it for myself right here. I'm just playing and seeing where this takes me. I'm not holding myself to any sort of expectations. I'm not referring to a reference that I feel that should be I should be stuck to. For in true transparency, or in full transparency, I'm actually using some AI generated artwork, and I'm bouncing back and forth from like 4 or 5 different pictures, completely making it my own so that it doesn't resemble somebody else's work, whether it be human or apparently computerized generations of taking stuff of all of ours. I don't know how that works exactly. I did kind of vow not to dive too deep into it this time. I can't even believe that actually I thought these were hand done, and it turns out they were AI generated. And I haven't really dived into how that all works, and what I feel about it and how I feel about it and how I should feel about it. I don't know if I'm not ready yet. I'm in denial or what. I don't know if I should be comparing it to digital photography, if it's not even remotely the same, since it takes all the other artwork and kind of merges it into its own. I'm not sure how I feel about all that. Anyway, let's get back to this painting. So I am just taking that kind of landmass and hoping to kind of turn it into, I don't know, what does it look like an island, just a big clump of dirt? I'm not sure. It could be big, could be small. We'll find out once I add the trees. I think I'm gonna add trees. Since this week is tropical Tommy Bahama themed, for me, what that is just kind of colorful Hawaiian shirts, but maybe not as extreme as it could be. I didn't edit this one overly. I took the cue on last week. Most people seem to not mind the longer one, so I did remove my arm when it crossed my screen greatly, but I left in most of the reaches and the paint grabbing just so that you could see this was done in real time. I did film this long with a lot of kind of breaks and elongated stuff. So I did get it down to about, I think, just under 30 minutes. So you could see that this can be done in real time. It's just at home I get so distracted by everything that's around me and taking breaks and checking things. I don't know, it's kind of a bad habit of mine lately. I'm just going to brush in. Again, this is kind of dry brushing, if you will. I did not wet my paper first. Essentially, I am kind of making it wet now though. So as I'm brushing the paint in, I'm going back in with clean water and just kind of messing it all up and loosening it all up. So technically it's kind of the same thing as wetting your paper then going back in. So you could honestly either do these either way. I just kind of like the freedom that this brush was giving me, and I'm just putting in maybe 3 to 4 to 5 different blues. I'm mixing them. I'm using them separately. I'm again mixing them again. I'm using water. I'm doing all these things and just keep adding more layers and more layers. And I'm pausing for I don't know what reason. It's hard to get all those little long pauses out. And so I'm leaving a lot of those in. So my apologies. Editing is a really quite a big struggle and a time suck. So I record these, right? And then I take out the big chunks of, like, maybe I get up and get a glass of water and I'm still filming. So I take out all the big chunks like that. Then I go back again and take out all. So that was an hour and 22 minutes of the main one, right? And then it got that down to maybe like 60 minutes. And then I went back and took out all the, the arm reachings, like some of these longer pauses. I tried to get most of those. I didn't succeed. I didn't get all of them. There was a lot to do. And then, so now I'm doing the voiceover, right? I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to go back and edit the voiceover for all the ums and the uhs and the, And lately I've been trying to leave some of those more in so it sounds more authentic, and it just is what it is. So those of you that know me know that I'm not super picky about being perfect and having the perfect voiceover and having everything flow perfectly. I'm more of the real-time kind of girl, real-time artist, showing you that real people can do this, and it doesn't have to be perfect, nor do I want it to be perfect, and imperfect art is okay. It's perfectly fine and should be absolutely more acceptable, right? Post that imperfect art. I do it every day. My stuff is far from perfect, far from realistic, far from maybe what people dream of when they paint. But for me, it's absolutely a dream, and it's absolutely a dream come true of mine to actually be able to create art and be able to call it art, call myself an artist, and fulfill this like dream I've had since I was a child that wanted to be good at art. And it's subjective, so whether or not you think I'm good or not, that's not really the point, right? But I like to find the good in every piece of art that I see, whether it's mine or someone else's. If someone tags me, then I'm all for finding what I appreciate. You'll never see me saying something that I don't care for about someone's piece or how to improve it, really. Even I prefer just to give the happy cheering on, right? The things that I like about it, whether it be the color, the composition, the reference choice, anything, right? I think putting yourself out there is very hard, and I'm biggest want to be your biggest cheerleader for cheering you on for doing that and trying these things that are outside of our boxes and are not normal for us to put ourselves out on the line like this. Okay, back to painting. We are still layering upon layer of this sea, just using all the different blues, dark blues, light blues, aqua blues, sea blue, dark blue, all this, how sea is made up of, technically not really color, but all the reflections, and the deeper the go, the more color. So just bringing all these in and trying to wait for it to pop for me, right? It's not for me right now. And so I'm just going to keep going and going and going until it does have some depth to it. I like the pockets of light, so I am trying to preserve those. Whether or not I do that, we'll see. To be determined. TBD. So I just keep going back and forth with that, and I'm still loving this brush. It's a great brush because you can loosen up your strokes really easily with it. The tip is just such a fine tip that it focuses you to kind of pay more attention to what you're doing in these little small movements, because you're not getting as much paint on the paper as you would, say, the mop, right? Because with a mop you're getting more at once, and this brush you're getting less. So yes, you have less control, but I feel like you have more control and mindfulness of thought of where you really want your paint, which I guess defeats the purpose in some ways, but also adds to the purpose in some ways, depending on what you're looking for. So really, this is just a reminder that you want to do what feels right for you. And if using this kind of brush doesn't sound fun to you, don't use it. Use what you're comfortable with. But if you like to maybe step outside of your normal art tools and try some brushes you haven't been using, maybe pick up something that you maybe don't care for, or maybe a brush that you haven't really learned how to master, and try painting a picture with it. Try painting the entire picture and see if maybe it can change your mind. And that's basically, I guess, what I was trying to show with these kind of brushes. So I did take my dry hake brush, my dry sweep brush is what I call it, because it never gets wet. I always keep that thing dry so that I can just do what I just did. Smearing, blending, kind of just brushing out the harsh edges, if you will. Kind of just softens everything up is what it does. And so I'll go a lot of back and forth with this water here and adding these waves and adding this depth and texture, as we've already talked about, right? Over and over and over. And yes, I could have sped through all this. Yes, I could have sped it all the way up actually and just probably gone through this. And I'm not sure that you need it here, but I feel like sometimes watching maybe somebody go through each step, or knowing that it takes, everybody different times to do things. Like, sure, some people could probably get all this done in a quicker amount of time than me. And I do bounce back and forth, like I mentioned before. I bounce from the sky, then I bounce to this landmass, then the water. I kind of just start working on anything that pulls to me at the time, checking the dryness of the paper. Now, I did want this to be a little bit drier because I wanted to drop in some darker notes on this landmass. I'm sure not entirely sure what it is, if it's an enlarged rock or if it's a hill or if it's just a tiny little like peak of a space that makes it look larger than it is, that kind of thing. I don't really know, and I don't think we have to know. Maybe it's a faraway magical land and it's for little things like fairies and little, I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that you don't have to always know. And again, I did leave those little pauses in there to have it be of a more real-time thing. And I do want to add some birds, so I'm going to use the same brush because it has such a fantastic tip. I believe I can get these birds. Now my paper is kind of textured, so sometimes it'll skip, so that's why I'm getting more water. With birds, I want the finest line I can get. So I do water down my paint quite a bit, but I also have to have the exact right amount on the tip of the brush. Not too much, not too less, right? And you can use a cloth next to you to dab off some of the excess water, but you just want enough to touch your paper. And I like the hint of birds, suggesting birds. I don't need big, bold birds, and I usually do too. That's kind of been my little limo lately. And so I'm going to add some trees, and finally, I did switch brushes. I switched to this little rigger brush that I got from Shimoni. It's my bird brush. I kind of just look at me. I switched from I was using my tree brush on my birds, and now I'm using my bird brush for my trees. How ironic is that? But playing again with different types of brushes and seeing what works for you is always good, right? Getting stuck in a rut and using the same brush over and over for the same things, it can be good, but I feel like it also, I wouldn't say hinder, but it can help us push ourselves and explore and just trying new things that can maybe help us in the future, right? Adapt faster and quicker, and self-rescue maybe better and faster, right? Because for me, the experience of watercolor is often just rescuing myself from one mess up to the other. Let's be realistic. It really truly is. And that's okay for me. That's where I am. I'm not the master. I'm not a skilled person that has all the answers for all the things that maybe if someone had gone to school for the specific things. I did go to art school, but not for this kind of art. So bear with me while I chat my way through this. And I just hope that you enjoy and you find what works for you. And if this doesn't, like I always say, take what you need and leave the rest. Or try something new, maybe from something. And again, if you just need something comforting to paint, pick your own reference and paint what makes you feel good, right? You can just paint along and listen to this. You don't even have to paint this one if it doesn't call to you. But if you need a friend in the background kind of encouraging you along and reminding you maybe to try some new things, or maybe just stay within your comforts for the evening, maybe that's what I'm here for. I'm here for all of it, honestly. And if that's what you can use me for, that's awesome too. I just think that it's helpful when we find our groove, right? When we find our little tribe, so to speak. And if it happens to be a YouTube, then that's fine too, right? I'm also here on Instagram, or there on Instagram. I'm here, there, I'm everywhere. So if you need to contact me, feel free. I'm always up here, always up and around, and always around on Instagram. So that's the best way. I do respond to those YouTubes and Facebooks too, but not as easily as I do for Instagram. Instagram seems to be my home base, so to speak, and the others I'm slowly coming around a little bit better, but not quite as good. So I'm still using this liner on this tree. I guess I just wanted to test out how fine I could get these branches. It doesn't have a very big belly on it, so it doesn't hold a lot of paint and water. As you see, I'm dipping like crazy. I'm almost like using it as a dip pen, like even more than I would a dip pen, just dipping and trying to get that paint on there. So eventually, I believe I switched brushes for the other tree, but I could be wrong. I can't truly remember, but I am using my Masha's greens again and using a lot of different of her, not a lot of different, but I'm rotating back and forth between the dark and the light and the light and the dark. I have about three
three or four of her greens going on right now, just to kind of balance out the different colors. And I also wanted this tree to be kind of dark against that light sky and the green glow that you see down below from the shrubberies. And I guess I'll be more mindful on my next one, and maybe I will take more of the like this, the standstill out. It's just hard. Sorry about all the ums. I'm trying to watch those too. those those I still struggle with. And you'll notice I keep getting my paper out of the screen over and over. So I did switch back to the super long script liner brush, or the liner brush. I don't think it actually has the word script in it. I think it's officially just called a liner brush. And so I do go back to that for these trees. These smaller ones, I just decided to go loose. Loose is better for me. That one, now that I look at it, kind of looks like a giant starfish just stuck up in the sky. And so maybe that wasn't the best way to go. But that's okay. It's okay to try all these things. It's okay to test the waters, right? Find out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And it's going to be different for all of us. I know I say a lot of the same things, but I just want everybody to be reminded. I need these reminders for myself often. So as much as I'm telling you, I'm really, truly reminding myself to just kind of be okay with where I am, what I'm doing, the tools I'm using, the choices I've made, and embracing all of those while I'm painting, right? Instead of just stopping and be like, nope, don't like this, I'm not going to do this. Every painting, I would say, goes through an ugly phase. And those ugly phases are just part of the process. And yes, they can be deterring, deterring at times, and frustrating, and making you want to just like, nope, I want to start over. But those exist for all of us, and they last sometimes until the very last stroke, until you finally realize like, oh wait, this is done. And sometimes you don't know when that last stroke, sometimes you don't know when you are done, right? You just have to keep going until you feel that within. I do keep getting up and looking at my painting from afar. Sometimes it helps if you stop and take a picture of your painting. You can also switch your painting to black and white and up the contrast so that you can see for yourself if you have enough of everything in there. There's all sorts of different tricks and ways to play with your piece and see and feel when you think it's done. You can just ask a friend too. And I'm not the greatest at constructive criticism, but I could totally see asking a friend, hey, do you feel like this is done, or should I add some more? And oftentimes the answer to this. I think we often need the reassurance, like, yeah, maybe you need a little bit darker down there, or maybe frame it in a little more, or there could be a million different things. Maybe you need another tree, whatever it may be. Maybe you just need more detail. Maybe you just need a couple birds to finish off. There's tons of ways to kind of close up a piece, and often my birds are last. And so when I did put those birds in, I did feel a little out of sequence, right? Because birds are usually last for me. Birds and splatters are my very last things I typically add. And I do my trees in odd numbers. So that's why I'm going back and adding this another tree. It didn't feel right with those like two starfish trees over there. Those do not look like palm trees. I have to apologize now looking back. I'm not great with palm trees, and I knew this, but looking at them, I really realized that indeed I'm not so great at them. I need more practice, a lot more practice. I should have watched a tutorial. Maybe I'll go back tonight on YouTube or Skillshare and see if I can find a tutorial on palm trees. If you haven't joined Skillshare for this 100-day challenge, I highly recommend it. You can find some classes that have 30-day challenges. There's 30 days worth of projects within one class. So this Skillshare pays for itself really fast. And even if you just did the 30 free days of Skillshare that we all offer, you can also get your worth right there, right? 30 days of whatever you need to practice on. Say you just want to practice all trees. You can find 30 days worth of tree work on there. You can find 30 days worth of sunset skies. You can find all sorts of things, right? 30 days on how to paint water. There's just a ton of stuff on Skillshare, and it varies. It's not just painting, it's digital stuff. There's things like macrame, even there's things like crochet and knitting. I think there's even like cooking, which has surprised me. I didn't know that. There's a lot of stuff, and like I said, it's a lot of hands-on and digital stuff. So if there's something creative and crafty that you had been wanting to check out, you can also check it out on there. And I think that you can watch I know that you can watch every lesson for free, the first one. So if you just wanted to go on Skillshare and check out some people that you like their lesson, their introduction. I believe you can watch that, and it could give you a decent idea. Although Skillshare does have certain ways they like us to say and do things, it might not be the best portrayal of somebody's actual class, but at least you can get an idea if their voice annoys you at all end, or if you can handle their voice for multiple classes, right? Because that's a big thing. A lot of times, voices will drive me insane, and I realize that people would say that about my own. So it's an eye-opening, and it does help me grow as well, watching other classes to know what I should do and shouldn't do. And on YouTube, you can also speed and slow down videos. I haven't done it myself. I haven't found the button, but there's a spot where you can slow us down or speed us up, and that can be super helpful. I'm just adding some bleed-proof white here for the water, just a little tiny bit. You'll barely be able to see it, but just enough to kind of give the waves a little bit of, roughness, white caps, barely white caps, but just maybe a little foam, if you will. And I did cut a lot of that out. I just kind of threw it in there and not a ton of it. So you won't see a lot, but I'm adding a little bit. And hopefully it just brings a tiny bit of brightness to the picture. And I think that is about it. We're almost wrapping up. I'm going to pull the tape off here after I finish this. And this was a fun one to paint. I really love these colors. They make me happy. I didn't think I would enjoy tropical this much because I'm not good at painting water. Yet, yet, right? I will be there one day. I will get there. I know I will. I feel it. I felt improvement in these tropical seascapes, except for those palm trees. But, you know, I give myself not enough credit sometimes. And so for water, I just find it really tricky, and I probably overthink it. So I just need to let go a little more, still more, and just go with it. Okay, there we go. Finally getting that tape off. Oh, no, I'm not. That tree trunk was a little too skinny mini. So I added a little girth to it because they're just so skinny and funny looking. But palm trees are often very characteristically lopsided or crooked and funny. So I didn't feel too bad about that. But after I finish this up, I kind of messed it up a little bit. So I'm adding a little bit more to everything there. But that's it. That is it. And I hope that you paint this with me. I hope you enjoy painting with me. And if you don't, paint your own and just hang out. So thank you so much for joining. And I'd love to see your artwork if you want to share it on Instagram, if you'd like to give me a follow here, and that way you'll be notified when I put out new classes. I've been aiming for every week. And so that is my goal. Thank you for joining, and I will see you next time. Bye.